became a fan of Harry Potter in the early 2010s. By the time I got to read them all, the books as well as the films had already finished its journey with the readers. So, finding out that the Wizarding world would expand and give us another film, possibly one that will start another series with new characters to relate with and new stories to encounter, made my little nerd heart happier than I thought I would be. The first installment of the Fantastic Beasts series, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, came out in 2016, following the adventures of the wizard Newt Scamander as he journeys to New York to set free a creature back to its natural habitat, only to find himself in hot waters with the American Ministry of Magic, MACUSA, when his suitcase full of magical creatures is opened, letting some of the creatures loose. He, along with some newfound companions, go on a journey to try and catch them all as the Ministry works to figure out what the dark force wreaking havoc around New York City is and how they can stop it. There's also a subplot about child abuse. Overall, I found this movie fun to watch. Upon first viewing, I found myself overwhelmed with an immense feeling of coming back home, but finding that my home was now filled with presents that I get to enjoy for the first time. It was refreshing to get another story that didn't revolve around Harry or Voldemort or any of the major characters in the original series. And after the betrayal I felt after reading The Cursed Child, I was more than happy to get away from that whole circle for a while. I loved that this film was set in America, because it broadens the Wizarding world even further for the viewers and gives us more things to find amazement in. I love Newt Scamander, and I think that having a main character that isn't the best at magic, but still tries his best to protect the people and the creature he finds that need his help is really wonderful. The gang isn't really chosen to be in the center of the story, and they aren't really in the middle of it either. I really like that this story has a clear arc, and that the plot points and the character arcs are developed and fleshed out in this film, and it really is good to have a standalone story about Newt and his little creatures, even though it is a bit tonally inconsistent. You know, with the child abuse and all. I give it a solid 6 out of 10. It's fun to watch when you have nothing else to watch. So, tell me why they found the need to follow it up with a sequel that doesn't have anything to do with the main characters. Crimes of Grindelwald is so out of place in this series. The thing that I liked about the first Fantastic Beasts movie is that it feels like a small tale that's contained within the major characters. It's a story about loose magical creatures that they have to catch, and a mysterious creature that they have to stop before it gets out of the magical world. If they really wanted to have a Grindelwald versus Dumbledore story, they should have started with that instead, because I know that people would love to see more of young Dumbledore and his journey from being a kind of shitty brother to being one of the most loved and respected wizards in the whole Wizarding world. They didn't need to bring 4 unrelated characters into the story that could have been so much better without them. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll be going point by point with all of the reasons why I hate this movie, with a few sprinkling of compliments, because I did kind of enjoy some of the parts of this mess of a movie. Okay? Cool. Let's begin. I hate the first sequence. First of all, I hate the plot points where you have to move a criminal to another place, and then of course the criminal gets away, because how else is the film supposed to start? But here's the thing. They're wizards. Why don't they just apparate and disapparate to Azkaban? What's stopping them from doing this? Plot? Also, the whole scene is just a mess. You don't really know what the hell is happening, and you don't know where anything is. And there are these people in brooms just behind the carriage where Grindelwald is supposed to be, and they're not doing anything at all, and you don't really see them do anything but follow the carriage and watch everything go on. It's really confusing, and one of the things that I didn't like about Harry Potter when reading it was how lame the action sequences are, and I really like that other people wrote Harry Potter screenplays because it made it seem more interesting action-wise. But now that J.K. Rowling is writing this all on her own, the action scenes are just so boring and there's nothing to them, and this first scene just shows us that she just cannot write action. Mute Scamander is irrelevant to the story. I don't know why they keep pushing this subpar wizard to be an Auror when he clearly doesn't want to be one. His problem isn't that he's neutral or that he doesn't choose sides, because in this very movie we see that he's been working for Dumbledore since the first movie. He just doesn't want to be a cop. It's a stupid way to get him into the story and to try and have some character arc for him, but it still doesn't work because he doesn't have to be in this movie. I also hate that we find out that the reason he was actually in New York was on Dumbledore's orders, which just takes away from the whole point of the first movie and of Newt in general. The reason why I resonated with Newt's character is because he just got caught up in this whole mess when he just wanted to make a quick stopover to go to Arizona for his creature. He wasn't chosen or destined to be there, but this movie just takes away from that. And for what? He doesn't have to be in this movie at all. All he does is conveniently appear in places where the plot is happening and look confused. This movie drags on too much in the beginning and then just drops everything in the third act. And it's honestly so dragging when you realize that it's been 30 minutes and it's still doing expository scenes. One thing that I absolutely loved about the Fantastic Beasts movies, the new characters, especially Queenie and Jacob. Now, I think that Jacob is still really good in this movie, but I just can't get over how much this story fucked up Queenie. First of all, I don't like that they brought back Jacob's memories like it was nothing, because it leaves the first movie to have less impact than it once did. That also means that there may be muggles in New York running around knowing about magic, because for them, the experience wasn't at all bad. Why didn't they just rebuild Queenie and Jacob's relationship from ground up? It would make so much more sense, and honestly, I'd rather see that storyline play out even more than what we actually saw. Queenie basically drugging Jacob and forcing him into marriage is disgusting and so out of character for her. This leads me to talk about the bigger issue at hand. JKR hates women. Harsh statement, sure, but absolutely true. I was so excited to see Queenie in the Wizarding World because for the first time, I thought I was gonna get a feminine female character that is also inherently good. I was excited because I didn't have that at all in Harry Potter. All the feminine characters were either really evil or wildly disliked by everyone around them. I thought Queenie would be that exception because JKR finally learned how to write good female characters that don't fall into the not like other girls trope. But she didn't. She fucking destroyed Queenie's character and I fucking hate her for it.
No! Work with me!
I found it so convenient that they all just happened to be in Paris because the plot called for it. Most of the time, the characters just happen upon the exact place where the plot needs them to be, and it's so fucking annoying. Also, why is Nagini being able to change into a snake so weird for these wizards? Animagis exist in this universe. Shapeshifters are normal for these people. Also, Nagini had no role in this movie, and she didn't really need to be here. It's absurd. Anyway, portkeys. Also, the way portkeys work in this movie weirds me out. Aren't you supposed to hold it? I don't know. Also, I don't like that they didn't really give a concrete explanation to how Credence survived blowing up. Did they forget that he blew up in the first movie? And they never actually fully explained it in this movie. It's all just so convenient that they all just happen to still be alive. This movie focuses on too many characters and none of them really make sense in this movie. Also, this movie has too many storylines and none of them are exciting, but the one storyline that is exciting, Grindelwald's, is pushed aside for no reason. It would have been so exciting to see Grindelwald's rise to power and how people tried to stop him if they made Grindelwald the main character. We see his struggles, we actually see the reasons why he's doing what he's doing. Because he believes in his own myth, and to see somebody so devoted to something that we all think is wrong is so interesting to see, and I don't know why JKR just didn't write that. It would be so exciting to finally have a main character who is the main antagonist, technically. I liked the introduction of Hogwarts and Dumbledore, but I also didn't like it because I knew that they were only doing this because their movie isn't good enough for people to care about it unless you do callbacks to things that actually give the fans joy. Also, it doesn't make sense that McGonagall is in this movie because she says in Order of the Phoenix that she's been working at Hogwarts for 30 years and this movie was set in the 20s whilst the book were set in the 90s. And also, Dumbledore was said to be a transfiguration teacher in the Chamber of Secrets. Did the person who wrote this even read the books? Oh. I really like Young Newt because the actor is really good at copy Eddie Redmayne's mannerisms, so I found that very enjoyable. However, Lita's character is too irrelevant to warrant a backstory. I really like the Hufflepuff ex-Slytherin friendship here, and it's really cute, and I wish they expanded on that more. Or not. Actually, I don't want this movie to get any longer. Grindelwald was completely forgotten for about 10 minutes just so they can explain what the fuck is going on, and it still does not make sense. When Lita says Accio book, the book just dropped to the ground. Why is that what happened when Accio is supposed to send things flying to you? The reason why I keep nitpicking about these things is because it's things like this that makes me realize that as a fan, they didn't put any care into creating this story, and they were just milking the success of Harry Potter. It tries to be smart, but the story is so convoluted that it does the exact opposite of what it wants to become. Crimes of Grindelwald could have been a good movie. There's a good movie in there somewhere, but I think that along the way, the writer just sort of got lost in her own myth and wanted to surprise the audience so much that she forgot the own canon of her own story. It's frustrating to be a fan of something for years and years and years, and then to see it just get bastardized in front of you by the very person who created it in the first place. You can't just erase canon and make up your own canon because you got tired of the canon that you started with. People grew up with the things that you wrote, and you can't just erase that to make a new story. Work around it. You're a writer. I mean, I don't think you're a good writer after this horrendous screenplay, but I think you're a decent one, and I think it's a decent thing for a writer who has such a big fictional world to play within the rules of her own fiction, and it's so disappointing that she doesn't. The only thing I can say about this movie is that it sucks, and that it hurts me more than it should. If J.K. Rowling really wanted to tell a story of Grindelwald and Dumbledore, she would have focused on them alone, not make them secondary characters to admittedly very boring main characters. Because the main characters we do have don't have anything to do with the story at hand, and it just feels like they're forced to be there when they do nothing at all to make the story better. When Lita died, I could barely give a shit because I never really cared about her as a character. When you chose to side with the cops, I was just so frustrated because the subplot didn't have enough time to really grow. When Queenie joined Grindelwald, it angered me because Jacob doesn't even want to love her when she's in the dark side, so her whole motivation is basically gone. This movie fails at everything it wants to deliver, and as a big Harry Potter fan, but also as a nitpicking amateur writer, this movie disappoints me, and I hate it. 3 out of 10.